And so we're going to see two different mothers here. This first mother, Rachel, she suffered and experienced loss. So Rachel is depicted as crying and weeping from her grave. And this verse 15, where we read this, thus says the Lord, a voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted. I think we read the fulfillment of that in Matthew chapter 2. And here's an interesting thing in the Bible. Often we have these little Old Testament stories that speak of a New Testament truth. So for example, here's what the Babylonians were about to do. And because Matthew says, yeah, well, that's what the Babylonians did, but really it was pointing to the coming of Jesus. Because when Jesus was born, you remember wise men came, they went to King Herod, they said, where is he who was born king of the Jews? And we saw his star, and eventually they figured Bethlehem. So Herod figured out that by the time these guys first saw the star was about 2 years ago. He said, okay, guys, go in and kill every baby 2 years and under. Every one of them. And he did. And you remember before that happened, Joseph was warned in a dream, take Jesus and Mary and hide down in Egypt. And even that is an Old Testament prophecy, that would happen. And so when all these children were killed as Herod was trying to kill Jesus, Matthew says, and Rachel was heard weeping for her children. A voice of weeping and lamentation happening in Ramah or Bethlehem. So it pointed to King Herod. And here's this word type. There's lots of these little types, something that happens in the Old Testament, but it really points to something in the New Testament. So we're going to see Jeremiah saying this is where history is going to go. And what were his critics saying? No, you're wrong, Jeremiah. History won't go that way. History will go this way. And yet we should be able to look back on this and go, history, not just this period of history, but history generally should sound a warning to us. And I'll tell you, you'll have people who say, look, just stop resisting. This is inevitable that we'll get our way. It's inevitable that you Christians will die out. The Greek Empire said, sexual activity is just a physical activity. Do whatever you want. Just do whatever you want. Do it with animals, do it with people, do whatever you want. Do it with multiple people. We don't care. Just do whatever you want. Soon after they came to that proclamation, they ceased to be a world empire. The Romans did it. The Roman Empire said, marriage between a man and a woman is now just one of the many options. And Caesar proved it. One of their Caesars, he married his horse. And the Roman Empire was soon to fall as a result of the stupidity. The Soviet Union. Did you know in the 1920s and 30s, the Soviet Union, under Marxist philosophy, Marxism says there is no God, there are no rules of life, you just do whatever you want as long as it's, as long as you're happy. 1920s and 30s, there was no concept in Soviet Russia of marriage. They said the state will no longer recognize or officially have marriage. You just do whatever you want. When Hitler began to invade, the Soviet Union overnight changed the law. From now on, this chaos, this bedlam that has resulted for the last 2 decades has got to stop. We've got to get our act together. And one of the first things they did, they said, well, from now on, we're regulating marriage. It's between a man and a woman. This country's in chaos. And we can't fight another country if we're in chaos. Now, that was only 60, 70, 80 years ago. Flip! This is history. Which side do you want to be on? Good preaching, Andrew. This is awesome. This is just awesome. Verse 22. How long will you waver, O faithless daughter? So Jeremiah appealing to the people. And then he says this, and this is outstanding. And it doesn't come out fully in English, but let me give you a little bit of the Hebrew insight. For the Lord has created a new thing on the earth. I want you to note that. That means never done it before. New thing on the earth. A woman encircles a man. A woman encircles a man. It doesn't come out in the Hebrew, but that word, a woman, it's not any woman, it's not women generally, it's a particular woman, will encircle a particular man. And the Hebrew for man is not man, it's actually the word mighty man. A woman, a particular woman who will live near Ramah will encircle a particular mighty man. And it speaks of the Virgin Mary, who will not know a man. This will be a new thing. I mean, a woman being pregnant with a child is not a new thing. That's not the new thing. And you don't need God's intervention for that to happen. This is something the Lord will do. This is why the virgin birth is so precious. Jesus was born a virgin. And I know there's a whole bunch of people that would have us believe that's just a myth. But it's not. It's really true. And it's really important that it's true. This second mother, Mary. You remember the first mother, Rachel, she experienced tremendous loss. This mother experienced tremendous gain. This second mother, Rachel, was the one who held the idols. She kept the idols. For all we know, she kept them for the rest of her life. She didn't fully trust God. And you read about Rachel in Genesis and read it in that light, you'll see this is a sneaky, conniving woman. Leah, I feel sorry for Leah, her sister. But anyway, this second mother, Mary, she didn't hide any idols. She wasn't hiding anything. She was probably not too much younger than Jeremiah was when he was prophesying this, probably about 15 or so. She trusted and obeyed God. Wow. So here's the deal. A whole bunch of people telling Jeremiah, you're wrong, you're on the wrong side of history. Let it go, Jeremiah. Jeremiah says, I'm not on the wrong side of history. I'll tell you what your history in the future will look like. You'll turn back to God. You'll come back to God in deep sorrow. And then I'll tell you what's going to happen. God will do something in a woman. He will do it. It'll be a new thing, never been done before. She will encircle a man, be pregnant with a man, and that child will be the Messiah. This is the new thing. This is the history that God will write, because God's writing history, not the Babylonians. And this makes me think there may be some here who you feel people have spoken things into your life. You'll never amount to anything. You'll never be any good. You're just a born loser. You're an accident. We never wanted you in the first place. People have spoken your history over you, and I've got to tell you, you may feel like your future is out of your control. Perhaps others are writing your future with their words. Johnny has lots of potential, but if he only studied harder, he could achieve so much more. I don't know if you ever saw that in the report, but I got a few of those. If Andrew didn't daydream so much. Maybe someone's trying to do that to you. Here's my invitation. Let God author your future by His words. His words that say, I want to give you a good future and a good hope. By His words.